We recently just signed up for our first HYROX Mixed Doubles event, which means that it's a men's and women's race. Both of us, Erin and myself, have raced in individual HYROX races before, and she's done a women's doubles race, and I've done men's doubles as well. But this is going to be the first time that we're tackling mixed doubles. In this video, we're going to be talking about what our strategy is going into this race so that we maximize our potential, have a lot of fun, and come out of it still a happily married couple.
Yeah, you forgot to mention that we are husband and wife, and this is going to be an interesting test of our collaboration skills while we get into some really challenging exercise drills together. And we each have different strengths and weaknesses, so we're going to talk a little bit about what those are and what we're doing to work on our individual weaknesses so that we can show up as the best power couple that we can be.
But what's HYROX?
So HYROX is a functional fitness race. It has 8 different fitness drills with a kilometer of running between each drill. You'll start right out the gate with ski erg. Then you do a kilometer run, you go into sled push, sled pull, burpees, farmer's carry, row, sandbag lunges, and then wall balls.
And for you, this is a big race because this is the first thing that you've signed up for since giving birth to our son. So when we're talking about setting ourselves up for success for this race, not only are we making sure that we're catering to both our strengths and our weaknesses, but making sure that we're reducing our risk of injury and other things that we do in our training here in our home gym so that Erin is calm, cool, and collected in the race. And both of us are confident that we feel we're gonna have a good race and not risk anything because we know that race day is just one day and there's a lot more going on in our lives that we wanna be optimal for.
But we like HYROX because it is a functional fitness method of training and it feels pretty sustainable. So the exercises that we're training for are functional fitness moves that help us maintain strength, and the running is really what helps us maintain our endurance. So together, we feel like it helps us continue to be well-rounded athletes without putting too much strain or stress on our bodies.
So if you recently signed up for a HYROX race, regardless if it's mixed doubles, doubles, or individual, you're going to want to understand your strengths and your weaknesses. So what are your strengths and your weaknesses when it comes to HYROX?
In HYROX, my strengths are the running in between each exercise, the burpee broad jumps, and the sandbag lunges. My weaknesses are the sled push, sled pull, and wall balls.
For me, it tends to be the opposite, where my strengths are anything strength related. And then when it comes to the explosiveness after the exercise, that's where I struggle most. So going into this race, we're really training for Erin to help me with my explosiveness in running and me to help her with her strength.
After you've outlined your strengths and weaknesses, you should do a time simulation to see how you actually work together and how your strengths and weaknesses can play out in a race day format.
And when you're talking about HYROX, there's 8 total laps and 8 total exercises. So when you look at it from a full scope, it can seem overwhelming. So one of our suggestions, when you're doing that timed simulation, make sure you're going into each and every lap with an understanding of like, let's just make this portion the best that we possibly can. What does it look like to make it the best that we possibly can? And then work your way through the race until you can feel confident in each of those different sections.
We don't have a lot of time to train throughout the week with our 4-month-old, but you still can do this race. It can still be something that you train for a little bit each day, and you just have to be strategic with the types of exercises that you're doing. So maybe it's a couple runs per week where you're testing your interval training. Maybe it's a couple strength exercises per week, but over time that compounds and it helps you show up in a better way on race day together.
And what we've really catered our weekly programming towards is that when Erin and I are training together, we're solely focused on our weaknesses. And then when we're training individually, we're just doubling down on our strengths. So her normal programming is typically gonna help her with her running, which is a strength of hers. And my normal programming is gonna help with the strength exercises during HYROX. But what I really need is somebody to hold me accountable to the running, and she needs somebody to hold her accountable to the sleds and the strength portions. So that's what we typically do on a weekly basis to give ourselves a chance of potentially hitting the podium in mixed doubles. So as we mentioned, one of the things that Erin has struggled with in the past in HYROX is the sled pull. And one of the things I don't think a lot of people think about when they're doing a sled pull is understanding that when there's a lot of slack, it's a lot harder to pull the heavier weight compared to when the slack is a bit shorter. So for us, one of the things that we're going to do is when you first get to the station and the rope is the longest it's possibly gonna be, I'm gonna start off and start reducing the amount of slack, and then that'll make it easier for Erin to jump in and give me a little bit of a break. So to mimic that in our training, what we are doing is I'm starting with the rope all the way down our driveway and then pulling it up halfway. And then as the slack gets shorter and shorter, Erin's gonna jump in, give me a little bit of a break, and then we're gonna repeat that 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds, depending on what our training is for that day. One of the rules that you're gonna be aware of in the sled pull is you can't both be touching the rope at the same time. So I'm gonna be the one starting on the station. I'm gonna come in, pull it until it's at least over halfway, so there's a lot less slack. I'm then gonna drop the rope on the floor, exit the box. Erin's gonna come in, pick the rope up, and start hammering away. So another thing for mixed doubles that you're gonna wanna take note of is that the weights during the exercises are gonna be the same as open men's. So for the strength portion, it's gonna be a little bit more difficult on Erin just because the weight is heavier than it would be in a women's doubles. In sled pull specifically, it's gonna be 225 pounds. So we're gonna do our best in training to mimic that, as well as make sure that she's getting enough time under tension on the rope. So not only just putting 225 pounds on the sled, she's gonna be pulling less weight on the sled for a longer amount of time. So if you're familiar with running and zone 2 training and how you wanna run a little bit slower for longer distances, we're gonna do the same thing on the sled, where she's gonna be pulling a lot lighter weight for a longer period of time to get her heart rate used to spiking up intensely when she's on the sled and give us a chance at turning one of our weaknesses into a strength.
Something that's helped me with the running portion of the HYROX race in the past is using a treadmill. The reason for that is because you can set the speed based on how fast you're intending to run. So our goal, for example, is to run sub 7-minute miles if we can. So what we're doing in our training is setting the speed on the treadmill to above that. So around a 6-minute per mile pace. We'll go straight from a workout, say sandbag lunges where we're taxing our lower body, straight to the treadmill at that speed for about 3 minutes so that we can't slow down. Now, obviously you can touch the dial and bring it down, but what you want to do is make your training harder than race day by going straight into it and keeping that pace for as long as you can. We're estimating about 3 minutes at a very taxing pace so that we show up on race day feeling prepared.
The true challenge of doing any HYROX doubles or mixed doubles like we are is the fact that everybody has to do the run at the same time. And when it comes to understanding the amount of energy you're investing in the exercises versus how fast you're gonna run, there's something else that goes into it that most people aren't fully aware of, and that's your own mind. So for me, my weakness in my past has been as soon as I've been done an exercise, I get in my own mind of like, I need water or I can go take a break. What we're going to work on, as soon as we get done an exercise, Erin's just gonna start running to trigger in my mind that I need to keep up with her. I'm typically gonna be the one that's finishing the exercises. She's just gonna start running. It's gonna force me to track her down and run a little bit faster than I normally would. Now in our training, the same thing applies because if she's on the treadmill and I'm doing my exercise, as soon as she gets off the treadmill, it's my cue to start chasing her because she's gonna start doing the exercise. So if you wanna level up your training and have a little bit more fun, something you can also do is a challenge where you're basically forcing your partner to go a little bit faster. As soon as they're off that treadmill, it's 3 minutes, and how many reps can you do on that exercise? And how well can you run on the treadmill at whatever speed that you're keeping it at? Really quickly, you're gonna see who's weak where, and then understand, okay, when we get to game day, we're gonna be already prepared for this to happen rather than being surprised on it during the day of your race. So when you sign up for HYROX, there's a lot of reasons that people potentially sign up for this race: to challenge themselves athletically. Maybe it was a dare that they got asked to do by a friend. Maybe they got suckered into doing this because somebody else out there told them that they couldn't do it and they wanted to prove them wrong. But when it comes to us and why we have done HYROX in the past and why we signed up to do it together in the future is because we know that when we sign up to do hard things together, it parlays into our everyday life and makes us a stronger unit. It also helps us during the race to think about why we are there in the first place. So when you are there struggling in the race, because you will struggle, it will be hard. If you have a strong why, it's gonna help you push even further than you normally would, and you're gonna do better on race day.
For me, personally, it's been because I wanted to challenge myself to do something outside my comfort zone. Now that we have a son, it's to set an example for him so that he can grow up, see us training together and individually, and know that this is a core value for us to push ourselves to do hard things, to maintain a healthy and fit lifestyle, and to remind ourselves that putting ourselves through suffering on purpose is what helps us get stronger in everyday life.
And when I think about mixed doubles specifically and why I'm looking forward to doing this with Erin, is because I know that the trials and tribulations in our past have really helped us become stronger in everyday life. And I don't want to rely on those bad times that infrequently happen to make me stronger. I want to figure out ways that can help make us stronger, and we can instill that in every day of our life. And usually that comes through challenges like HYROX, where you are going to be suffering on the day of that race. And because we'll be suffering both as individuals and together as a team, we're going to be able to learn a little bit more about each other and how we handle adversity. And when we come out of that race, we're going to show up as a better wife and a better husband and a better father and mother to our child, as well as better friends, family, community members, solely because we chose to do something hard and show up and endure through the suffering.